Casual. I'm liking this. I get to learn. Hmm. All right. Hello and welcome back to the Guilt Stand. This is Stephanie with Sex Talk with Granny, and I have today Lewis Huckstep. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for joining me. And for people that don't see the video, you've got such fascination in the background. Like there's mannequins everywhere. There's Let's Get Cozy in the background. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to having a conversation.
Yes, me too. And this came about. I'm so grateful to have you on here to discuss. I had another guest on here in August before I left to go see my mom and dad. And he discussed his issues that he had had in abuse with by his ex-wife. And he's a 285 pound, 6'5" teddy bear. Really, he's a teddy bear, and I call him that anyway. He's just sweet as pie. And he was abused, not only physically, but mentally. And he, people shamed him. Like he told people his story and they shamed him. Now, how can it? You know, you're 6'5", 285 pounds. There's just no way. It's not probable. And I'm like, so I had to have him on because I know so many other men that have struggled with this and won't share about it and don't have any support. So I thought bringing you on, maybe you had talked about another experience, so maybe you can shed light. And I forgot, thank you very much, but will you tell us your story first?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And I love the casualty. We're talking before camera, just having fun and being casual on these. And I think they're the most authentic and real podcasts there are. So look,
Thank
my
you.
the short version of it, I struggled a lot mentally and emotionally growing up. I had a lot of volatility emotionally with my mum, my dad, in my upbringing. I was diagnosed with Asperger's, ADHD, and autism when I was younger. And yeah, I just struggled with my own confidence, my own mental health, my own masculinity, which we'll probably dive into today. I went down the business world. I got into business when I was around 18. I worked for free for 2.5 years. I then got the opportunity to buy the business I was working at. Bought that at 20, opened a second one at 21, opened a third one at 22, had three physical businesses, gyms at the age of 22, team of 15, doing $1 million a year. And I was super stretched, super stressed, and I was just a bit off. Very naively was doing this. I didn't really have the strong foundation. Hit breaking points, wanted to throw it all away, was depressed, was over it, wanted to just wrap it all up. Got out of my pity party, got my shit together for a better term, and used all the self development. I've invested about 300,000 Australian dollars into self development over the past 9 to 10 years now. And yeah, just obsessed about self development, mindset, healing, being confident, authentic, knowing purpose, knowing how to rewire the limitations that we have. And through doing that, plus obviously learning business skills, because obviously there's the skill component to life as well, was able to sell two businesses. I've got one still at the moment, runs without me. I've got a beautiful, authentic, inspired team in there. And yeah, for the last sort of year and a bit, I've been coaching people full time doing this because this is what I actually love doing. I love coaching. That's my purpose. That's my passion. That's what I love doing. And yeah, helping people heal, rewire their minds, be successful in quotations in their personal life and their professional life, blending the two. Because I believe if you don't have the quote balance or whatever integration, whatever word people like to use, if you
Yes.
don't, yeah, do what you authentically love and you're in balance, you're going to have pain. So yeah, I help people do that. And yeah, I guess that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, like that. And I liked you were just interviewing someone, Sandu, about his purpose. And so it's one thing that I've studied a lot on is if you're not doing ikigai, whatever you want to call it, your purpose in life, it's definitely going to be a misbalance. What an amazing story. I love it. Misdiagnosed younger, took the balls and said, I got this. And that took a lot of hard work. I know this. And um lots any support from your parents?
Yeah, I love my parents. I've still got a great relationship with them. Went through
Yeah.
maybe some tougher times when I was earlier, but yeah, They were really, really supportive. I'm from a little island in between Australia and New Zealand, so they flew me to Australia to get me quote tested and got the label given to me. Which obviously there's truth to it. There's obviously tendencies and personality quirks and traits that come along with my way of thinking. And yeah, so they were helped me get outside my comfort zone. That was something that I like routine, I like structure, I like doing the same thing all the time, which has its benefits for consistencies, but generally you become a bit of a hermit crab and you don't really do anything outside of your box. So dad was amazing and got me to stretch myself, get into sports, which is awesome. Mum, just the unconditional lover in my family. I love my mum, and she just such loves you unconditionally for who you are, which has given me a gift of being able to do that for my clients because they think they're broken, they think there's something wrong with them, and just being able to love them authentically for who they are is one of the gifts my mum gave
Love
me.
it. Wow. Amazing. And the businesses, I mean, to do 2.5 years, dedicate, no money. Not many people would do that. Full time.
Yeah, it was, and more than full time. I was like,
I was gonna say,
I was acting like it was my business, and
okay,
I was actually paying to work there. So Scott, good old Scotty, he charged me a membership, so I was paying 30, $50 a week to quote work at this business, work in this gym. How I made money, we did network marketing. That was like the business model. You use the gym as like you bring people down for training, get them onto supplements, build your network marketing business. So
got it.
I was still running the gym like its own business,
Sure.
and then building my money, my sort of income on the back end of it. So yeah, it was a crazy time. It's a crazy period of my life.
And to do it at such a young age, I just love it because to have that, to have the tenacity and endurance at that age. But I will say, being ADHD myself, you are a very special person. You think differently. You can actually, and having, I don't know if you still categorize yourself. I don't. I don't, I was born and raised that way. It is who I was, but I am just who I am. That's how I am. So, um, I embrace myself. It sounds like you embrace your, um, labels, if you will. Do you still go by your labels or what did you do? Just
Yeah,
so
I don't.
other people know.
Yeah, I don't use them. I use them in the terms that other people understand them. Like other people use them. Like they use like if you use the word toxic, like in a relationship, most people kind of have their version of what that is, and that's different to everyone. So ADHD and autism, they generally people get a bit of a sense of what it's like. The thing is like, and sounds like we'll be similar to this. I don't like it when people use labels to limit themselves and define who they are. Like I am this because of this. I don't agree with that. There's truth to it. There's truth to everything. Do I
Yeah.
have a tendency, like this is the way I view ADHD, someone who has a high level of energy and a high sensitivity to boredom. So you've got a lot of energy, and then if you do something you don't give a fuck about, you'll do something else instead. Um, so there's pros and cons to that because the balance to that, wherever there's an up, there's a down. Whenever there's a surplus, there's a deficit. So if you've got attention deficit over here, you have attention surplus over here. So for me, when I'm doing something I'm excited about, like my coaching or my whatever I'm doing, my health, my learning, I'm like hyper focused. So that's the benefit of doing it.
I
Because
know.
if you want to be successful in anything in life, it takes a lot of fucking energy and a lot of fucking focus and attention. So yeah,
Yes.
there's just pros and cons to it. So I don't use it as a
Yes.
limitation, which is what
I don't either. Yeah.
but yeah.
Good. I love that. I love that. And it's sad when people do. And I've met a lot of parents who have had kids labeled different types, Asperger's, autism, and I constantly explain to them that don't use those labels to define. And just because it says the book says the DSM, whatever the name is, or however you use it, it's whatever that says in the book doesn't mean that's how everyone falls. It's just a guidance to use. That's it. That's
Yeah,
all we use it for. Anyways, I just hate labeling. So thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
beautiful.
So let's get into another thing I had mentioned to you, how I really enjoyed a podcast that you and your partner did. Is that
Awesome.
your wife or your partner?
Fiance, soon to be wife.
Fiance. Okay. You guys did a cute little one because I'm sure, I don't know, there's probably a yin and yang with the two of you, you being very exciting and very busy, and she's helping you probably calm down and be more zen,
She does.
possibly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I sensed that in the video. So tell us how. I really liked the whole part about communication because it's the biggest thing that everyone has a problem with. So please share how couples can communicate at a higher level, better level, or something, so that we can move past these stagnant relationships that are just dead.
Yeah, beautiful. Look, for anyone that's listened to me speak, I generally zoom out, then I'll zoom back in. So I'll just zoom out for a little bit. So I just got off a podcast 20 minutes before we jumped on one, and we'll speak about relationships as well. It was a similar conversation, or this answer is a similar answer, but for me, there's foundations for everything. It's like if people try to, um, I don't know, it's like you try to paint the car to make it go faster when the engine's fucked. It's like fix the engine. The engine's fucked. You got to
Yeah.
fix that.
Yeah.
So for me, like fixing or improving communication, like you can give like little sort of nitty gritty tactics, which can work, and I believe in those. But for me, there needs to be the foundation of the relationship itself. And are you guys, and I'll go through my sort of steps I go through. But firstly, I always say that everyone needs to, in quotations, needs to be whole in themselves before they get into a relationship. Like if people like are in the mindset that this person completes me, you're literally saying that you are not full and you're lacking. You're coming from lack, and whatever you need in life controls you. So if you're needy of your partner, then if they treat you
Mm-hmm.
poorly, you're not going to be willing to set a boundary and hold them accountable because you're scared of leaving them, scared of being single, scared of being alone. So yeah, so firstly, that's the first step is be whole, where you love who you are, you love your life, and you're okay being single, and you're just inspired to be with the person, so then you both evolve and grow together. So that's the first step. Second step is understanding what your vision is for your life, including the relationship, because everyone's different. If some people want to have kids, so if you want to and the person you're with never wants kids, it's a conflict. It's not going to work. So this is where chemistry and compatibility, that conversation comes up a lot. So you need to have the compatibility of the vision. So where do you want to go with your relationship? Kids, communication, intimacy, experiences, travel. Do you want to have an openish relationship? Do you want to have experiences with others? Do you want to be monogamous? Like what type of relationship do you want? And then firstly, are you both aligned with that? Does that align? Like if one wants kids, one doesn't want kids, no, not aligned. That's cool. Try again. Find someone else. But then secondly, are you aligned? But second, are you both willing to become the people worthy of the vision? And that's, for me, is the key question, because you don't get in life what you want, you get in life who you are. So if you want that relationship, you both need to become worthy of the relationship, from your communication to your confidence, to your self-worth, to your energy, to your health, to whatever the fact is, financial intelligence. So once you have that foundation, then the communication becomes a lot easier. So, for example, I did a bit of role play on the last podcast, and the beautiful host, she was just using an example that, like, how would you, like, her partner snaps at her for not putting the towel in the wash, or vice versa. She holds him accountable for not putting the towel in the wash, and he snaps at her. Like, if you didn't have that foundation I just spoke about, it's hard to really tackle that. It's hard to hold accountable in a healthy way. So I said, okay, pretending you had the conversation, you had the expectations, you're aligned, you're willing to hold each other accountable. Beautiful. Then you just asked you a beautiful conversation to have is, honey, baby girl, sugar, whatever you call your partner, how do we handle each other when we get triggered? What does good communication look like? Because how do you hold each other accountable to an expectation when there isn't any expectation? So what's good communication to you might be different to me, will be different to everyone listening to this podcast. So getting just clear on what are the expectations, what happens when you trigger each other, which is normal, and that's where you reveal wounds, you heal through. That's other stuff we can talk about. But yeah, it's like, what are the expectations? So how do you like to be spoken to? What's your way? Because yours will be based on your upbringing. Your partners will be based on their upbringing. And again, they will probably be different. There might be some alignment, but it's not going to be perfectly the same. So what are your expectations? How do you like to be spoken to? And then holding each other accountable in the moments where you're challenged, you're triggered, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you snap at each other. So For me, that's sort of the foundational work, and then I'm not sure if you wanted to go where you wanted to go with that, but then you can say like, how do you actually pre-frame? How do you communicate? Like an example that I've shared publicly. My partner loves it. I always out her on these podcasts, but she got triggered once, and I get triggered too. Just I'm a human being too. And then after the dust had settled, I made her feel safe, seen, heard, loved, appreciated. And then I asked her, I said, "Baby, what happened just then?" She's like, "Look, I obviously got triggered." I said, "Beautiful. Where's that coming from?" And she understands how to do the work, so she understands this stuff. I said, "Beautiful, baby. Okay, well, what can I do to help you with this? What do you need from me? And how can I help you with your healing? And what is your way of healing?" So, like, there's the sort of nitty gritty. How do you ask questions? How do you speak to each other? But without the foundational stuff, it's just hard because you'll like if you're coming from lack and your partner does something that you don't appreciate, you're not probably going to be willing to even hold them accountable because you're scared of them leaving you. But
Right.
if you so that I'm not sure if I tackled your question, but that's the
No, you
thoughts.
did. And I want to go back to this because I liked this, but I first have a question. You know, because you said that she knows how she's wired to think that way. So I want to know what that means
Yeah.
because you must have a way that people think. But uh, with regards to when do we have this type of conversation? I find that so frequently relationships are rushing quickly. We got to hurry. Where I'm quite the opposite. I'm like, there is no hurry. I want to see how things go organically on dates, on a trip, on a hike, on a friend thing. You know what I mean? I want to see how they act organically without actually telling the person, you need to do this, this, and this, and then we'll be perfect.
Yep.
I don't want that because narcissists, no, I'm just a little bit, but narcissists look for those things to be able to prey on other people. So I'd rather not do that as an empath, highly sensitive person. I tend to like to tell everybody everything. So now I'm quite the opposite. So I think if we had a structure of that, but what I'm finding and hearing, these whole things, be whole before the relationship, doesn't happen. Future vision compatibility doesn't happen. I mean, I see people going, well, they said they didn't want a kid in the beginning, but now 3 years later, they want kids. Well, then were you really, maybe, I mean, to me, there's a list that's made with a couple.
Yep.
And it brings all of these future vision compatibilities with the kids, the house, the big house, the little house, minimalism, materialistic, all that stuff. Money, where's it go? Parents, do we see them for holidays? Is it ours? Do we involve, you know what I mean? All of these things, because these are things that can be pinch points in relationships.
Yep.
And to me, everyone is starting out unaligned right now.
Yeah, like I agree. I agree with everything you said. So,
That was the other thing I saw on you, being whole before you get into a relationship. And that really just made me go, because I do a lot of dead bedrooms. Okay. So I do a lot of couples that are over 40, some over 30 that are in dead bedrooms already because they haven't had that conversation about sex, because that's what I talk about, is openly about sex in relationships and why they dead bedrooms, why they stop, especially after kids, after marriage. And people are not understanding that a woman's libido pretty much goes down, 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 down after people get married and live together. So it's one of the podcasts that I've done with a scientist that brought in all the research on that. And so my point is, why do we not how do we come up with a comprehensive list to give couples to do? Okay, if they want to rush into something, then they should talk about their future vision compatibilities before they even You know what I mean? I feel
Yeah.
like people rush in. So how do we help people so we're not having all these horribly unstable relationships?
Beautiful question. So, look, there's no the thing. I use the term "you fix the plane as you fly it," and I use that for business. I use that for relationships. I use that for life. And like the things, so I'll use me and my partner as an example. So when
Yes,
I was,
please.
so we met each other when I was 22, when I was just getting into, when I had the gym, sorry, 23, and was gyms, hustle, hustle, hustle. I don't want relationships. I want to make money and build business. And I was very unbalanced and unhealed. And I was acting out of insecurities, not inspiration. And anyway, so, but I was into self growth, love self growth. Tony Robbins, my partner's literally at Tony Robbins right now. She's going to see him right now, which is really cool. So I was
Nice.
into I was into self development since I was 18. So into Tony Robbins, Robbie Kiyosaki. I was into Wayne Dyer, DeMartini, Joe Dispenza, whatever. So I was doing a lot of self development. And when I met my partner, first thing that stood out was she's never done it before. She'd never read a self help book.
Wow.
She'd never done it before. So for
Wow.
me, one of my non negotiables was self growth. I cannot be with a partner that does not grow. And I literally, this is the way I worded it to her. I said, "Hey, babe, like, look, just want to be real with you." And when did I have it? I think I had it within the first sort of month or two that we were starting to hang out a bit and sleep with each other and go on dates. And I don't know. I don't have a time frame. Some people's asked me when's the right time to do it. I think intuitively you know when to. I think that's my answer.
Yeah, that's
But
good.
anyway, and I just said,
I like
hey,
that.
hey, look, can I be really real with you? Something that's really a non-negotiable for me in my vision. Essentially, this is back to the vision for my relationship long term is that we grow together. Because if one person doesn't grow, their insecurities and their stuff that they haven't worked through is inevitably going to ruin the relationship because one person is going to grow, one person is not. There's going to create a gap. There's going to be lack of communication, intimacy, and that's just a non-negotiable to me. So I asked her, I said, babe, not just for me, but for you, do you want to grow and work on yourself? And I told her, you don't have to be Tony Robbins, but it's just never ending
Yeah.
improvement on working on you, becoming a better
Yes.
version of you. And she said, yes, of course, I want to. I've never heard of this. We watched Tony Robbins documentary together. She signed up for a Tony Robbins coach. She's had a sex coach. She's had many, many programs. She's done, vulva massages and, she does a lot of sort of energetic spiritual growth, which is beautiful. She
Love
does.
it.
She
Love
loves
it.
health. Health is a high value of hers, or training is. So yeah. So I brought that up. I don't know when early on, a couple months into us sort of seeing each other. But as you evolve, as you fly your plane, you want to keep evolving it and growing it. So other things will pop up. Like we didn't talk about kids. Like we spoke that we both wanted kids, but what type of parents do we want to be? How do we want to school them? Do we want to take them on holidays? How do we want to be around money with them? How do we want to what around these are things that evolve as you go. For me,
Got
I
it.
would get clear on the non-negotiables and I've got a couple. One's self growth. One's I want kids. One's health. I could not be with someone who doesn't look after their health. Again, it's no right or wrong, no judgment to someone who doesn't. It's just
Just who you are.
it's just who I am, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, so there's the non-negotiables. Like my partner's a mad, crazy Taylor Swift fan. It's like that's cool. I love it. She's not my flavor. I don't listen to her too much, but I do because she plays it for her all the time. But that's like I'm like, oh, like she doesn't like my type of music. This isn't going to work. It's like okay, that's like that does not matter, right? But
Right.
so for me, it's whatever the non-negotiables are, and everyone's different. But mine's self-growth, health, kids, family, energetic. I'm more a masculine-driven person, so to have someone who's very feminine in who she is was appealing to me, but that's more of the
Yeah.
sort of the chemistry side of things. So yeah, that's I think I don't know if I addressed your question again, but
You
that's
did.
my
I love it. Fix the plane as you fly.
yeah, I use that all the time.
That is really cute. I really like that. I like little lines like that. I was big into Tony Robbins, all of that, and I mean, so amazing that you said that because I know so many people, so many men that are unwilling to do that, and not people just like because I deal with a lot of men in relationships with women that are struggling, and they're just unwilling, and I'm like, well, why are you in it then? Why did you get in it with them? If they're unwilling to grow with you, why are you guys? So there's a lot of things that happen, and it's just amazing that we could just do some work in the beginning on ourselves. Make it a whole lot easier of a life for us. But anyway, yeah, I don't. Most of the men around me always are all the ones who will work on themselves that I hang out with. Okay, my kids, my business people, and always amazing people. So I couldn't be around people, you're right, that are not willing to grow with you. It's just even friends to me, Um, I think that's really nice. And I think people needed to hear that. And I want to leave it with relationships there, yours, and how to be a whole person. So we can bump into how do we help these men that are in these maybe relationships. And I want to say men, we can say women, but I did the women thing. So I'm really focusing on the men today. So I don't want to, and if you have some women tips, please feel free. But it is for the men today. But what could we do to help them to still feel in their masculine, not feel demasculated by talking about the abuse that they might have with their partner so that they can have a better life? Whether it's with a coach like yourself, to help them get out of it, a therapist, a friend, something. What can we do?
Beautiful. Look, for me, like this is the game of life. This is the spiritual evolution that we're all going through, and it's just being able to identify those parts of ourselves where there's limitations, there's hurt, there's trauma, there's coping mechanisms that we've picked up, and it's just being able to go back and untangle and unwind those blocks and those limitations, so we're a better, fully expressed version of who we are. So look, it's such a huge can of worms. This is where I spend a lot of my day thinking and working with my clients. But it's been able to just identify, where are you not free? Where do you have resistance? Where are you triggered? What things are you doing are coping mechanisms from the pain that you've been through? So you've been through pain with dad, where he beat you and you had to be strong and not show your emotions and not be a pussy and showing it, crying it is men don't cry, whatever. So then you build up this wall to protect yourself of the muscle and the strength and the money and the success, where all that's really doing is building up a wall to protect that hurt boy that's still in there. So what if we go back and heal the hurt so the walls aren't even needed? And that's essentially the work that I do. So it's been able to find, where are you triggered? So whatever triggers you is revealing something you haven't healed through and worked through. And then through, obviously, someone with my ability and my skill and other coaches as therapy, whatever strategy you want to do, it's been able to identify, first of all, have the courage and awareness that I want to do this because I want to be a better expression of who I am. And this is cliche, but the universe throws you pebbles. If you don't listen, it gives you boulders. If you don't listen, you get brick fucking walls. And it's like people with their health. It's like you lack a little bit of energy, and then it's all right. You keep smoking your cigarettes, and you have a bit of a cough, and then you're short of breath, and then you have a fucking stroke, and it's like, okay, now it's time to get my health together. You don't have to wait to the stroke. Like in a relationship, maybe you're not as loving and caring as each other. You're not, the sex and the intimacy starts to die down. You're not as excited to see each other. Then you start snapping at each other, and the snapping gets worse, and eventually you want to kill each other. And so you don't have to wait to like the stroke. You don't have to wait to the brick wall. You can listen to the pebbles. Just most people won't listen to the pebbles. So, and I was like that too. Don't get me wrong. I used to have to get many brick walls to wake me the fuck up to my shit. But it's like, yeah, you can you can heal yourself. You can do the work yourself, or you can wait for the universe to just repeatedly slap you across the face to get you to wake the fuck up to your shit. And your shit, and maybe to frame that, your work you haven't done. That's all it is. And you will attract people and circumstances to trigger the wounds you haven't healed through. That's an iteration of Peter Crone's quote, where he says, you will attract people and circumstances to reveal where you are not free. So it's just whatever triggers you, because what someone does is their stuff. How you react and respond is your stuff. So when someone triggers you, which will happen the most in an intimate relationship because they see more sides to you than anyone else, they're just revealing these parts of you that you're not free. And if you're just blaming your partner for how you feel, you're literally saying they're in control of who I am, which is bullshit. It's a lie. It's a mirage, and you're giving your power away. So for me, be aware of what triggers you. Be aware of what where you're not free, where you have judgment, where you've got hurt, and a lot of people have things they're aware of, and a lot of people have things they're not aware of. Like something might have happened when they were 5 years old, and they just can't fucking remember it. Or something happened when they were 12 years old, and their mum or dad did something, or dad did something, or their ex-girlfriend or boyfriend did something. They were cheated on, they were taken advantage of, they were hurt. Like there's different healing strategies for different sort of things. I won't go into that, but yeah, I guess to come back to your question is if you want to be the fully expressed, authentic, best version of you, it's not about putting up the walls, which might look like overcompensating with money, with success, with cars to show how good you are. It's actually about healing the hurt so you don't need the walls. So you're being your authentic self where you're okay being vulnerable, because vulnerability is just putting those walls down. And you don't even need the walls when the wounds aren't there, because it's just protecting the wounds. So if there's no wounds there, you don't need the walls. So you might even change the word vulnerability to be authentic, just being authentically you, which has all sides to you. It has the sad, it has the happy, it has the driven, it has the lazy, it has all sides of who you are. We're just so scared to show it because there's hurt underlying it. So I would just encourage men, anyone, but obviously men for what you're talking about, that really be aware of what triggers you, and it's going to happen most in your relationship. Look to where that's coming from. Probably dad, probably mum, caregivers, ex relationships, whatever pain you've been through, and start to explore that. Find a therapist, find a coach, find someone you feel safe to open up and be vulnerable to, and who have the skills of how to actually rewire and to dissolve whatever's there, so you can be a better, authentic version of you, and you'll be more confident in who you are. Confidence for me is the absence of the limitations. Like I've never met a baby, and depending on like what age, obviously, but I've never met a fresh newborn baby who's born with lack of confidence. I've never met a baby that is born who thinks they're not enough, right? Because we are
Yeah.
born from source and we are divine, infinite beings. It's all these limitations we pick up along the way that we're not good enough, we're not enough. I have to have money to be loved. I have to have a car to be successful. I have to make $1 billion to be fucking worthy, whatever bullshit you've come up with. It's the removing of that which allows your authentic divine self to shine through, and that version of you is authentic. It shows who you truly are, your confidence, your worth, and all of that. So yeah, it's the unraveling of the ball that I was referring to before. I picture like a straitjacket, like it's a straitjacket with many layers, and we're just constantly undoing these layers to allow our true self to really shine through. That's what I'd recommend people to do.
I loved that because so many of us have walls built up from our issues and trauma from the past, which then definitely inhibits future relationships. And, the simplicity of just breaking those down, it sounds simple. It does, but it isn't. I mean, it isn't, we know. Um, don't wait till there's the stroke. I like that. Don't wait. You don't have to wait till there's a stroke. And a lot of people do wait till the stroke happens to do something.
Yeah.
And I like that message because we wait until something bad happens to actually make a change. We wait till we're flat on the bed, like you said, even somebody having a stroke, until they make health changes. We wait until somebody says you're fired to make a change into something that you want to do, right?
Yep.
So there's all these things that we do instead of taking charge, because we are the director and the writer of our own life, if we choose to do so, right? So it's our choice. Somebody said to me today, and I loved this line. He said, when you make that decision, that's because you made that decision. So stick by it, right? And if other people will try to make assumptions and put their own stuff onto you, you have to be strong enough to say that's your decision, and their assumptions or what society says. And it wasn't about it wasn't about me. It was about a friend of ours. And it's just we tend to change our way of thinking because other people make assumptions of us instead of just thinking, no, it's my story. I get to write this story. So men, I encourage them to not feel like they are going to be demasculated by discussing their feelings and being, if they're not that, they don't need to be an asshole back to their abusive wife.
Hmm.
They don't need to be that way. And it doesn't make you less than if you're not verbally abusing them or anything. You don't need to tolerate that. So, um, and it's not just for abusive men, it's for any type of person, honestly, that needs some self-help coaching, because you're right, 100%. If you're not doing self-help, work on yourself and growing yourself, you will stay behind any partner, any person's that's part of your life, all of that. You'll be behind, and it's not that you're below them, you just have outgrown each other.
Yeah.
That's it. All right, we're going to get close. I just have one last thing. You said this. My partner, she knows how to work through that.
Yeah.
What does that? This was specifically talking about you triggered her.
Yeah.
And something, and you did this. So what is this?
Yeah, beautiful.
Help us.
Beautiful. For the people that are listening, I just kind of pointed to my head and sort of like was
Thank you.
moving my hands around my head. So for me, I was referring to processing. So there's a book behind me. It's called "You're Not Broken" by Dr. Sarah Woodhouse, and she talks about trauma is unprocessed memories, and I really love that simple explanation of it. And so the question then, well, how do you process it? So yeah, that's if that's all it is, which is all it is, it's just memories that haven't been completely processed. How do we actually process that? And then that comes into what it is that I do. So what I was referring to with Georgia, my fiance, is when that trigger happened, it's like, where does it come from? So there's trauma, traumatic reactions, and triggers. So trauma is the event. It happened, you weren't seen, you weren't heard, you were abused, you were taken advantage of, you were hurt, whatever the painful event was. That's the event. The traumatic reaction is how you react to it. It's also known as coping mechanisms. Do you smoke a cigarette? Do you eat food? Do you disassociate? Do you get anxious? Do you get stressed? Do you get angry? What's your way of coping and dealing with the event? And then 3 is the trigger. So the trigger sets that off. So you get attacked by a dog, you feel anxious. So the dog attack is the trauma. The reaction is you feel anxious. Now a trigger is you see a dog. A dog walks up to you and you feel anxious, and it sets it off. So essentially, what happened in that particular example I was sharing. So Georgia had a stepdad. From the stories she's told me, anyways, is that she was always felt to not be enough. Everything she does was not enough, and no smart enough, never good enough. Everything she did was a failure, and she was just always undermined from her stepdad. And so that trigger of me with the eggs saying like, what's going on with these eggs? Like you fucked these eggs up for the food, that triggered that trauma. So that brought that to the surface, and she got triggered and she got scared and upset and she cried because that I set off the trauma, and her traumatic reaction was to get upset and to cry. So that then is the blessing, because now we've got awareness of, oh shit, you've probably forgotten about that. Well, you're aware of that. No, you weren't. Well, it's in there. Now you've got the opportunity to go process that. And then you go through and you process it. And there's ways of doing that. There's Reiki healers, there's sound healers, there's therapists, there's coaches like myself. I've got my ways of doing it. And it's just unraveling that pain, balancing it. So I balance perceptions. That's my style. But it's also removing the limitation that comes a part of it. So you get triggered and told that you're not enough, and you have that painful event. They want to heal that, but we also want to dissolve the limitation that comes out of it. She's come up with, I am not enough. Okay, that's a limitation. That is not true. That's the ego's interpretation of the event, which is just an illusion, but it's true because it's your truth. It's not the truth. It's not a universal truth, but it's the individual's truth. But that limitation shows up everywhere. We always make our beliefs true. So if you believe men are assholes, you will fucking find them. You will attract every single one of them. If you believe that you're not enough, which is what my partner had, she was finding things to reaffirm the belief that I have, because the ego's job is to protect you, but also to make itself right. So if you believe you're not enough, it will find things. So she use that example of the eggs, of I was meant to make a fried egg, looks like a scrambled egg. I'm not enough because I fucked the eggs up. Well, you just didn't flip the egg properly. But it's revealing the limitation that's in there. And so and so when I was doing that with my hands, it was okay, what's your way of processing? I've got my ways, she has her ways. So then it's up to her to go then do the work, whether she goes gets a coach, goes gets a therapist, goes does some journaling. I've got a set of questions that I ask that I take people through to process stuff. So yeah, it's just finding your way of processing, essentially, is what I was referring to.
I wanted to say that because I was assuming it was a processing. You were like, there's with the finger. Sorry, I'm really bad about saying all the what my hands are doing, all that. But what I loved about that was we do need to process our stuff. Take the time, the space, the quietness, work through it in our own head, all of it. Because if you don't, you are all right. We just carry that on to the next relationship. So you saying that is huge, and you having the steps to help people to do that. Because if you don't know how to do it, I mean, it took me years. So you having the steps is critical. So I'm so grateful that you have shared these amazing tools that could actually, today's podcast, people could actually take your stuff and start doing it today.
Beautiful.
That's what I like.
Awesome.
And then they have the tool to start and hopefully then reach out and get some additional coaching from you. So, I mean, it's amazing. I always just love helping people get to the next step in life. If we could just get that little bump, you know? So I know we're going to wrap it up here. And I just want to thank you for coming on my podcast today and sharing your information, your beautiful relationship. I can't wait to see how that evolves and where you both end up, because I'll be following you and we'll have you on again. I would like to have you on again. Will you come back?
I would love to. It'd be awesome.
Okay, great. I'll book it again. I think I have some other things that I've watched you, because you're a coach. So I want people to understand a little bit more about coaching and what that really means and how valuable it is in life. And you said that you spent $300,000. Well, I haven't spent, but I have had it, spent it myself. Yes, but it's so valuable and it can really be life changing. So that would be a fabulous one to help people.
I would love.
So thank you,
Love
Lewis,
to.
for coming on.
Yep. Beautiful. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, I hope your audience got some value today.
I know I did, and I know the listeners that I talk to will absolutely that actually share with me. I know they will too. So these are things that they love. So thank you very much.
Thank you.